"You're just the janitor." The CEO sneered, eyes locked on the man's torn shoes. "Those things holding your dignity together?" The boardroom chuckled. But by sunset, the CEO would be gripping the gate of a mansion on the hill, face pale, voice trembling, as the same janitor stepped out in a tux, flanked by security guards. And everything she thought she knew about power would shatter. Before we dive in, drop a comment with where you're watching from, and don't forget to hit subscribe for more videos like this. Let's begin. Tanner Brooks didn't flinch when the CEO's stiletto heels clicked to a halt inches from his mop bucket. "Nice shoes," she said, sarcasm slithering like venom through her words. "Did they come free with a janitor uniform, or did you wrestle them off a scarecrow?" Laughter erupted in the hallway. Tight suits, fake grins, and those who'd never worked a day outside climate control. Tanner didn't respond. He simply dipped the mop into the bucket, wrung it slowly, and continued cleaning the marble floor, one streak at a time, like the CEO hadn't just stripped him of his humanity in front of an audience. But her assistant, a timid young woman named Riley, flinched as if she'd taken the blow herself. She opened her mouth to apologize, but Tanner looked up for half a second, eyes steady. "Don't," he said softly. "I'm used to storms. They don't last." It silenced her. The CEO turned on her heel with a sharp laugh. "Let's go. This floor reeks of desperation." What she didn't see, what none of them saw, was that just hours earlier, that same janitor had taken a phone call in the loading bay. "Yes," he'd said into the receiver. "Everything's ready. I'll sign the papers tonight. By morning, the controlling shares will be mine." And when he hung up, Tanner had smiled. Not the smile of a janitor, but the smile of a man who had been silent long enough. That evening, the CEO, Madison Kellerman, threw a rooftop cocktail party to celebrate the company's quarterly profits. Champagne flowed, the skyline glittered, and everyone played the same game. Flattery as currency, ego as language. But Tanner wasn't there to serve drinks or mop up spills tonight. He was watching from across the street, inside a black SUV parked under a flickering lamp. The man next to him, Leon Grant, his longtime lawyer and former Navy brother, handed him a leather folder. "You sure about this?" Tanner nodded. Every board member voted. The majority stake was never hers to begin with. She just screamed loudest. And now she's going to listen. Back at the tower, Madison laughed too loudly at a joke that wasn't funny. Her assistant Riley handed her a fresh glass of wine, but just as Madison raised it to her lips, her phone vibrated. Unknown number. She answered anyway. A voice, deep and calm, said 3 words. "Step outside, now." She froze. Something about that voice. It wasn't threatening. It was familiar, like thunder rolling across a distant memory. She hesitated, then moved to the balcony and looked out. Across the street, the black SUV flashed its headlights once. Her chest tightened. What the hell? And then the gate of the building across the way creaked open. A man stepped out, dressed in a black suit. His shoes, shined leather. Not a tear in sight. It was the janitor. And Madison dropped her wine glass. The glass shattered at Madison's feet, but she didn't even blink. Her eyes were locked across the street, mouth parted slightly as the man in the black suit strode toward her building. No mop. No bucket. Just confidence, like it had always lived in his bones. "Tanner," she whispered, as if saying the name would make the illusion crack. "What the hell?" Riley stepped beside her, nervous. "Is that the janitor?" But Madison didn't answer. She turned on her heel and stormed back inside, her stilettos slicing the air with each step. Downstairs. Tanner passed the security desk without so much as a glance. The guards didn't stop him. In fact, they nodded. One even stood a little straighter. At the elevator, he pressed the penthouse button. Alone. No key card needed. On the rooftop, the laughter was thinning. People started whispering. Word had already traveled. Someone just saw the janitor step out of a luxury car. Someone said the head of legal shook his hand, like they were equals. Someone else said he was wearing a watch that cost more than their rent. Then the elevator dinged. The doors opened, and silence took the room hostage. Madison turned. She went pale. "Tanner," she said, voice dry. What is this?" He stepped out onto the marble. The same marble he used to scrub at night when the building was empty. The same floor where her heels used to click past him like he was invisible. Now, his shoes echoed louder. "I was going to wait until morning," he said, pulling a folded paper from inside his blazer. "But I figured I owed you the courtesy of delivering this face to face." He handed it to her. She didn't take it. So he laid it on the bar. One of the board members picked it up instead, read it, blinked, then looked at Madison. "You didn't tell us you sold your father's legacy, Madison." Her face went slack. I didn't. You signed over your voting rights 2 years ago for liquidity. Tanner bought them, all of them." "You're lying," she snapped, but her voice cracked. Tanner's eyes never left hers. "I swept your floors, cleaned up your messes, heard every cruel word you thought I was too small to notice, and I never said a thing. Not once." He stepped closer. "You should have been kind." She stumbled back. The room watched, breathless. But then Tanner did something no one expected. He turned to Riley, the assistant, the one who'd once tried to apologize in a hallway. He handed her a second envelope. "What's that?" Madison barked. Tanner answered, eyes still soft. "A promotion contract. She's my new chief of staff." Riley gasped, hand over her mouth. "You can't," Madison growled. But Tanner cut her off. "I just did." Madison didn't remember leaving the party. But somehow, an hour later, she was outside Tanner's gate. It was a sprawling estate, hidden in the hills, guarded by black iron and trimmed hedges. Floodlights lit the long driveway. A fountain bubbled quietly near the front. She stood there, clutching the cold bars, staring in, trying to make sense of a life flipped upside down. And then Tanner stepped out of the house, still in that suit, still calm. He walked toward her, stopped on the other side of the gate. "You followed me," he said, voice low. "I had to see it." He nodded once. "Then look closely, Madison. This," he gestured to the mansion behind him, "is what quiet dignity builds while the world laughs." She opened her mouth, but no sound came. He walked back inside, and the gates closed. Madison barely slept that night. She tossed in silk sheets, surrounded by glass and chrome, cold luxury that now felt like a cage. Her phone lit up over and over. Board members, investors, gossip blogs. Even her mother called, saying, "I warned you to stop mocking people." But Madison didn't answer. She just stared at the photo that had gone viral overnight. Tanner Brooks standing at the rooftop bar, surrounded by the board, holding court in a suit. Headline: "From Janitor to Owner, the silent takeover that shook Kellerman Industries." The comments were worse. She laughed at his shoes. Now he owns her elevator code. He's got the grace of a king and the memory of a soldier. Karma wears shined leather. By morning, her inbox was a war zone. 2 clients canceled. 3 senior VPs filed resignation letters. 1 investor demanded a full audit of her spending. And when she arrived at the office, her nameplate was missing from the executive suite. It had been replaced. Chairman, Tanner Brooks. She barged into his new office, heart pounding. "You humiliated me," she spat. Tanner looked up from a file, calm, unshaken. "You did that yourself," he said. "I just gave people permission to see it." "You planned this, what, to get revenge?" He shook his head. "Number, I planned it because people like you never imagine men like me are watching, listening, waiting." She scoffed. "You think this makes you noble? You're a janitor who got lucky." He stood up, slow and quiet, like a man who didn't need to raise his voice to make the ground tremble. "I'm a janitor who earned equity when your father still ran this company. He offered me shares for helping him keep this building alive when you were too busy sipping cocktails at Ivy League mixers." She went cold. "I never sold those shares," he said. "And when you diluted the stock, I bought the difference. Piece by piece." His voice turned iron. "I didn't get lucky, Madison. You got arrogant." Outside the office, Riley watched through the glass. She remembered the day Tanner had handed her that promotion envelope. He didn't know her story. Didn't know she was caring for her sick grandmother. Didn't know how close she was to quitting. He just saw her. And now she worked beside a man who didn't care what shoes she wore, as long as she walked with integrity. Later that afternoon, a call came in. A man from a veterans housing nonprofit had heard about Tanner's rise. They were looking for a corporate partner to help expand their shelters. Madison sat in the conference room, silent, as Tanner signed the papers on the spot. "I'll cover the first 5 locations," he said. "We'll name the second one after your grandfather." Madison blinked. "How do you know about—" "I remember everything," Tanner said, not unkindly. "Especially those who served. He was a good man." Her throat tightened, the first crack in her armor. That night, she returned to her penthouse, took off her heels, stared at them, then picked up her phone and typed a message. "To Tanner Brooks, I was wrong. Not just about you, but about everything. If there's anything I can do, I'd like to learn what it means to lead with grace, even if it's too late for me." She hit send, and for the first time in years, she cried. Tanner didn't respond to Madison's message that night. He read it twice, then locked his phone and stared out at the hilltop skyline. He wasn't angry anymore. He was tired. He had carried quiet hurt for years, the kind that doesn't scream. It settles deep in your bones, turns silence into a second language. But now that he stood on the mountaintop, he found no joy in looking down, especially not at her. Madison came to work the next morning wearing flats. No makeup, no assistant, no entourage. She sat in the back of the conference room during a team meeting Tanner led, taking notes like an intern. No one laughed at her. No one mocked her. But no one greeted her either. She had spent years stepping over people. Now she had to learn how to walk among them. After the meeting, she waited until the room cleared, then quietly walked up to Tanner. "I'm not here to fix what I did," she said. "I know that's not possible." He looked at her, waiting. "I'm just here to be of use, even if it's just filing papers or fetching coffee." Tanner raised an eyebrow. "You think I'm interested in your guilt?" "No," she said, "but maybe you're interested in what guilt can grow into, if given the chance." He studied her, not her clothes, not her broken pride, but her eyes, and he saw something new, humility. He nodded once. "All right, one chance, don't waste it." Weeks passed. Madison worked silently, hours longer than anyone else. She started asking Riley for help, volunteered to take minutes, sat with interns during lunch. When no one was looking, she wiped down the counters in the break room. One night, long after everyone had left, she found herself in the janitor's closet. It smelled of bleach, lemon, and something oddly grounding, old rags and clean floors. She stared at the mop. Then, without knowing why, she picked it up, started cleaning. Behind her, Tanner's voice said softly, "You missed a spot." She turned. He was smiling, not mockingly, genuinely. "I used to stand here," he said, "and listen to the company parties upstairs. Heard the laughter, the toasts, and I used to wonder what it would feel like to be welcome in my own building." Madison swallowed. "And now? I built something better. I made it so no one ever has to feel that invisible again." She put down the mop. "I'm sorry, Tanner. I really am." "I know," he said. "But don't say it to me. Say it to the people you stepped on, one by one." And she did. Riley found herself warming to Madison, especially the way Madison had started showing up early just to help her prep files. "You're not who you used to be," Riley said one day. Madison gave a sad smile. But I'm finally someone I can live with." Then, one night, something unexpected happened. Tanner received a call. An emergency. Madison's mother had collapsed at her home. She'd used his name as an emergency contact. He didn't ask why. He just drove. He found Madison on the porch, alone, knees drawn to her chest like a child. "She's inside," she said, voice shaking. "I didn't know who else to call." Tanner didn't speak. He just sat beside her. And for once, there was no pride, no shame. Just two people, surviving. Madison broke the silence. "I used to think power meant never bending to anyone. But maybe real power is bending and not breaking." Tanner nodded. "You're getting there." 3 months later, the company was buzzing. Tanner had announced a new leadership summit, an open forum where employees from every level could submit ideas, pitch improvements, and challenge outdated policies. It would be streamed company-wide, a chance for every voice to be heard. Madison hadn't expected to be invited, so when Tanner handed her the final speaker slot, she froze. "You want me to speak?" she asked. He nodded. "You've worked for it. Now stand in it." Her palms were slick that morning. As she stepped onto the stage, lights blinding and camera red-lit, Madison's voice trembled at first. But then, she saw the janitors in the back row, the mailroom clerks, the assistants, Riley, beaming, and Tanner, arms folded, calm as ever. She took a breath. "My name is Madison Kellerman," she began, "and I used to walk through these halls thinking my title made me important. I spoke down to people. I mocked what I didn't understand. I used my father's name like a shield." She paused. No one moved. "But the truth is, I didn't earn a single thing until I lost everything. Until a man I used to call just the janitor taught me what leadership actually looks like and what kindness can rebuild." She turned to Tanner, voice soft but clear. "You didn't humiliate me. You gave me the mirror I refused to look into." Tanner's jaw tightened, but he nodded. And the room stood. One by one, slow but steady, the audience rose to their feet. It wasn't applause, it was acknowledgement. Later that evening, as the crowd filtered out, Tanner found her on the roof, same one where she'd once dropped a wine glass at the sight of him. This time, she smiled. No heels, no shield, just herself. "You spoke truth," he said. "I tried." "You didn't try. You did it." They stood in silence for a while. Then she asked, "Do you think people like me can ever really change?" He looked out at the city lights. "I don't believe in people like you," he said. I believe in people who choose to become someone new. 6 months later, Madison launched a nonprofit arm of the company. It was Riley's idea. They provided scholarships and mentorships to janitors' children, mailroom workers, cafeteria staff, anyone whose name was never spoken in boardrooms. The first check? Tanner signed it himself, and Madison delivered it by hand. The last photo ever taken of Tanner Brooks before he quietly stepped down was at a community fundraiser. He wasn't in a suit. He was wearing old jeans, a clean flannel shirt, and those same leather shoes, restored, polished, but unchanged. Standing beside him, Madison, not as a former CEO, not as his replacement, but as his partner in purpose. Some still whispered about the day the CEO mocked the janitor's broken shoes. But those who knew the real story, they said that was just the beginning, because that day was the day the company got its soul back.